Welcome back, guys, to another episode of Decentralized Chain, bringing you the latest news, reviews, and blockchain tech. So today we are going to be reviewing PChain ICO. That's right, they are looking to be the next generation scalable, interoperable, and sharding solution. So let's understand a little bit more in terms of what that actually means. So what they're looking to do is capture pretty much the most exciting aspects of previous projects before it, such as Rootstock, for example, which brought sidechains, Polkadot, which basically brought cross-chain interoperability, and then Zilliqa, which ultimately brought a sharding solution to the market. And they want to combine the best features of those into one blockchain and improve upon it. So let's just break each of those separate elements down and understand a little bit more about the project as a whole. So if we start with the sidechain, let's take Rootstock. Rootstock operates as a sidechain. It basically separates the blockchain that exists alongside another blockchain, okay, which is basically your sidechain. Now, the purpose of that is really ultimately to provide the bridging with Ethereum smart contract functionality to Bitcoin. That's what Rootstock was aiming to do. Now, whilst this is an exciting feature, the other element that you need to know is that it basically allows for greater scalability and faster transaction times, which we all know you kind of need within Bitcoin as a network overall. And so that extra bandwidth basically is provided by the sidechain. Okay. Now, what PChain here have done, however, is they've gone one step further, and they're basically providing the first multi-chain solution to be compatible with the Ethereum virtual machine. And so what the EVM is ultimately is the software infrastructure that underpins the Ethereum smart contracts. And so what this means is, rather than just operating as a single sidechain like Rootstock did, the PChain solution actually consists of multiple sidechains, right? And really what that provides, and I'm just going to open up a graphic from the white paper to kind of explain that a bit more while we talk about it. So if you have a look on the left hand side, you've got the overall structure behind that. And what you can see is happening is that you've got the PChain main chain running, but at the same time you've got parallel transactions processing on a scale that's not really possible with a single stranded structure like Rootstock. See, so you've got the side chains just underneath running in parallel to the main blockchain happening at the same time. And so whilst other blockchains have attempted such multi-chain solutions, they have pretty much fallen down due to not being compatible with Ethereum's virtual machine. So this basically means that they've obviously had to in the past rely on traditional languages such as Node or Java, which doesn't really allow for effective programming mechanisms or traceability overall. PChain is not just solving the issue of scalability, but also issues of interoperability. It's offering the cross-chain functionality to a wide array of public blockchains. So you've got in the diagram, you can see Bitcoin Cash, Bitcoin, Ethereum, obviously, and clearly there'll be a host of others to come along the way. Now, the scope of the project is really not there for just looking at what Rootstock are doing, but they're going far beyond that by providing really more complete interoperability like solutions like Polkadot, which basically ultimately uses a one-size-fits-all approach where PChain can support the smart contract call of non-native tokens, right? And that's really key, the smart contract call of non-native tokens. And so the last element here within what they're trying to do is really going back to the likes of Zilliqa, and they were the first to kind of pioneer the techniques really of sharding to improve performance. And however, again, what we see here, the key element is not just having a multi-chain structure that gives that unfair advantage, but a single chain project cannot compete. So if we look at the team, they're led by world-class Dr. Cao Fang. And so those who haven't heard of him, and I suppose outside of China, you most probably would have not, but a bit of digging, a bit of research, and ultimately he's the first person to invent the international blockchain patent in China. And he's also the first to execute China's first ever blockchain transaction. Now, the idea here really is that, he's certainly not an opportunist here looking to jump on the blockchain bandwagon, but rather he pretty much is the single most experienced figurehead in Chinese blockchain sector, who is seen as ultimately by his own people being China as the answer to Vitalik butchering. So, you know, that's quite a status and a title within that country itself to have that. You know, he's successfully accomplished the first blockchain-based assets earning rights transfer in the world in September 2016, which is also the first financial blockchain transaction in China, as I mentioned before. He's the ex-chief scientist of internet finance and co-chair of the Patent Review Board in IBM Research China, as well as IBM Global Technical Achievements. So certainly someone with experience within this space, but also someone with intelligence behind that to back it up as well. 22 papers in ACM and IEEE, so they're top conferences, as well as 30 plus international patents. So, you know, for me, the team lead here is well experienced, well poised within this space. Equally, the team that he has beneath him are just as equally capable within that space as well. So I certainly like the look of all of that. So let's move on to the partners. So usually I like to talk about advisors and partnerships. Here I don't necessarily see any advisors on board, but then equally they have a tremendous number of partners to compensate for that. And I think one of the reasons here really is that Jeff is very well connected within government, within industry, certainly across China. So they already have a number of working relationships in the past and in the present to be able to take this project forward, and also to get those within that space or within government to be able to utilize this project as a whole. So in terms of looking at the partnerships, he has pretty much a pipeline or a consortium of at least 11 Chinese commodity exchanges, equity exchanges, final asset exchanges, as well as the government mandated China Federation of Logistics and Purchasing. Plus there's more that I've seen in various interviews that are to come as well. Now, in terms of those areas, I think what we kind of need to understand is that prior to founding PChain, he also co-founded China Ledger, which is basically China's leading open source blockchain for the financial sector. Now, that has actually formed an alliance, or is formed of an alliance of 11 regional commodity exchanges. That's huge already. So he's already got that link, he's already got that connection within that space. You know, their equity exchanges, their financial exchanges, covering the breadth of exchanges, not just one particular sector in finance. And from what I understand, they're also in the final stages of completing a partnership with China Ledger, which will basically give them the reach that most new blockchain projects can only dream of, right? That itself in a partnership is huge, and it's great, right? Now, China Ledger is also partnering with the Chinese government on multiple blockchain projects as well. So giving PChain really the opportunity to ultimately forge important government partnerships and going forward. Right. Now, in terms of that, the other element here around the partnership space is that they have a partnership with the China Federation of Logistics and Purchasing, and basically they are a mandated government agency, and their sole mission ultimately here is to harness advances in technology for the logistics and procurement sector. So, you know, once again, as we all know, certainly projects that come out of China are also looked after China. So what I mean by that is they're looking after their own here first and foremost. So certainly this is a project that will have legs definitely within China first and foremost, and have the connections within China as well. It's a very large company, it's a very large economy as well overall. Now, the other thing to mention here is Jeff is also the chief scientist of the Blockchain Application Committee, or the CFLP, and that is one of the many roles key in the Chinese blockchain community. This really gives PChain unrivaled access to industrial applications, you know, which uniquely can be provided by the solutions that they're producing overall. Now, let's have a little look at the roadmap. So in terms of the roadmap, the website didn't really lay it out as best as it could have, and it did take me a little while trying to figure out what T meant in terms of the timeline, what the starting point is. So I did have a conversation with Jeff in the Telegram community, and so what I've done is I've just taken this timeline, I've dropped it into PowerPoint just to give you a bit more of a graphical representation of what to expect in terms of how this project's going to evolve overall. It is an 18-month project in terms of full end-to-end delivery. So in March of this year, we had the PChain position paper completed, their white paper. Now, the next milestone really for them is October 2018, so it's about 7 months away. And this is where they're looking to complete the development of the PChain core system, which will ultimately allow deployment of smart contracts, and they're going to be publishing their technical paper as well as their testnet. Okay, so that's when their testnet is coming out. So we're at least looking about 6 months down the line. Guys, this isn't going to be a quick flip. I suspect it will be a popular ICO nonetheless, because if you can see some of the partnerships they have behind them already, certainly having the backing of government as well as other major partners as well within that space, they're only going to go forward. Certainly China are going to look to leverage their own blockchains before taking on anything from outside of China. Then moving into March next year, so once again another 12 months from now, that's when they're going to publish their first major network, and that's when the network's going to be complete, as well as providing the external APIs and wikis, and I suspect that's going to be to provide the interoperability between the other public blockchains. And then as we then move on, we've got June, so they're going to expand the capabilities and bring in knowledge graph and data blockchain. So knowledge graph is around search and big data, and we'll talk about the applications a bit later. Google are doing something in that space, quite impressive area of technology. And then at the end, which is the final stage that they're calling Ocean, that's where they're going to introduce several blockchain applications projects to actually form the knowledge graph blockchain alliance as well. So that's the roadmap. Now, in terms of looking at some of the applications, as I mentioned, so what we have here is distributed artificial intelligence, so distributed questions and answers. This is kind of competing with the AI space, where you've got ask the questions that is being asked around. For example, so if we say how many people are looking to open up a current account for a given bank, or within this particular demographic, this is kind of where the knowledge graph elements being brought in, is encapsulating lots of human data sets and human answers and being able to provide some of that. You've got the standard blockchain notary systems that they want to provide, so immutable ledgers. They've got digital asset transactions, so providing records for digital assets. They've got the full collaboration life cycle, so this is looking at supply chain and sort of looking at competing within that logistics space. And as I mentioned, they already have, or going to be having, a major partnership within the logistics space in China, so they kind of have that bit covered. They've got game and rule settings, so that's really around avoiding cheating. And then we've got trackable social networks, so recording what's been said across the world. And that will most probably feed into pretty much a lot of their knowledge graph elements as well, because it's what people are saying, you're asking questions and you're getting answers. So there are multiple applications that this can be provided overall. Right, I'm sure you guys are thinking about what about token metrics and how does that all work out? So once again, I've had a little dig around. There isn't much mentioned on their website. I found various other sources that have kind of extrapolated what the token metrics will be, and I've put that into a quick spreadsheet just to kind of visualize it for you and to make it a bit easier. So looking at the token metrics, we have 2.1 billion tokens total supply pre-mined, and that is being split 35% for the actual token sale, so that would be over pre-sale and public sale. We've got another further 25% reserved for the community, so the PChain Foundation, as well as community building activities. So once again, that is going to be available for the public as opposed to being sectioned away for the team. And then the remainder, we have around 15% for proof of stake. So as they are pre-mined, and obviously to set up the nodes and get the infrastructure up and running, there will be a fee or a reward in this case for actually providing the backbone for that node, for the actual nodes and infrastructure. And then we've got team and early contributors that are keeping 25% of the token supply. I haven't seen exactly what the vesting periods are, if any. Likewise, I haven't also seen anything around what it is that's being presented as part of the bonus rounds or for the private sales. I have sent an email. What I do know is private sales are starting at a minimum contribution of 300 Ethereum. Right, now looking at the actual monetary terms, so it's an ERC type 20 token. PCH is the token symbol. They're looking to raise 50,000 Ethereum as the hard cap. So if we kind of do a quick calculation, taking into consideration the price of Ethereum as of the 23rd of March, which is $526, we are looking at roughly a hard cap of 26 million or just over, which to me seems reasonably priced in terms of a blockchain project. That tends to be what most of them are going for in this day. And that puts the price of one PChain token at 3.6 cent or 4 cent if we're rounding up. Right, so moving on, let's look at the hype and awareness. So within the Telegram community, as of today, they have around 3,000 members overall. It is quite under the radar, this particular ICO at this current stage. So I suspect this will grow substantially as we get closer to certain dates. And then if we look at the Twitter following, once again, they've only got 600 followers, so very much under the radar at this point in time. For final thoughts, let's go and have a look in terms of the radar chart overall. So for the team, well, for the project itself, I've given it a 4. This is an ambitious project, certainly one that I've seen to date. You know, they're looking at capturing and improving pretty much quite a few of the exciting aspects of previous blockchain projects. So, you know, like I said before, Rootstock for the sidechain capability, we've got Polkadot for the cross-chain interoperability element, and then obviously we've got Zilliqa for the sharding component as well. So certainly they're bringing in a lot into one space. In terms of prototype, I've given it a 0. I haven't seen anything mentioned in the Telegram group as of yet, and obviously we're a good 6-7 months away from seeing the testnet. So I suspect prototype is somewhere along the way leading up to that. In terms of the team overall, so, you know, it's led by, certainly we say world class, this is world class within China, by Dr. Cao Fang, who's Jeff. And, you know, ultimately he is within China dubbed as the Godfather of the Chinese blockchain. So, you know, being one of the first there within that space, as well as being called the Chinese Vitalik. So, or Vitalik. Now, you know, other things to mention or notably here within the team, they do have a good solid team. They have a team with a good solid background that have been around within the blockchain space for a significant amount of time. Also, you know, the individual here, the team person leading the team, clearly is within that blockchain ecosystem overall, being someone who pretty much invented the first international blockchain patent in China, and then as well as executing China's first ever financial blockchain transaction. So he's very well known within the Chinese ecosystem, within China as a whole, certainly within that blockchain space. So more or less a leading founder, and certainly that will do wonders for the project overall, because they're going to have those existing links within the Chinese workspace. Now, advisors, there weren't really any mention, but the partnerships are very heavy, and that's what advisors are there for, to kind of help you open up partnerships, open up doors, and ultimately make that journey a bit more seamless, or really take down some of those blockers or barriers that they might find along the way. But as we all know, they have significant partnerships already in play, because they're a co-founder of an organization that already has ties within government. And so from that, as I mentioned before, we've got the 11 Chinese commodity exchanges, equity exchanges, as well as financial assets exchanges. So that's really good from a partnership perspective, as well as they also have the government mandated China Federation of Logistics and Purchasing. So that's around the supply chain element. So they already have those hooks within there and potential use cases for the blockchain project overall. And then obviously they also have other applications already agreed that they're going to be mentioning soon along down the roadmap as well. So, you know, overall partnerships advisors, I've given that a 4. It's really good within that space. Token metrics, for the time being, I've given it a 3. I don't know enough about the vesting periods or the bonuses or the discounts that are people being offered. So that is quite key. We need to know what that is, as to whether you're going to get dumped on the moment it actually lands on exchanges, or whether it's going to be a nice steady rise in price as well. So this, I've just kind of given it an average mark. I like the token metrics overall in terms of the split, the share, the price, the hard cap. All of that works quite well and quite beneficial. So I think once we find out a little bit more, I'll be happy to then adjust this in a later video. Hype, I've given it a 2. It is pretty much under the radar at this point in time, but I suspect as more prominent YouTubers pick this up, the message gets out there, I will certainly expect that this Telegram community will blow up significantly as well. So here you go, guys. I hope you enjoyed this review. Certainly sounds like a very interesting project to watch. And certainly if they kind of get the prototypes out and the token metrics and the hype, you can start seeing that this is already formulating a much larger radar overall. So very well based and balanced outside the ring. So anyway, guys, Please leave a comment below if you've enjoyed the video. Please share, subscribe and like to the channel so I can create more content for you. And if there's something you didn't like, or if there's something that you disliked within the video, feel free to give it a thumbs down. But more importantly, please leave a comment below so I know exactly what it is that I need to do to improve my content on the next round. Thanks for tuning in, guys, and see you soon.